From Merritt, New York, this is SportsTalk 1240.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer, following the great Bill Donahue, another terrific show by him. You can't argue with a better lead-in than that. And we got a lot to cover tonight. We got the Red Sox coming off their 2018 World Series championship. We got the Giants on a bye week coming out with that. We got two games tonight as I'm coming on. We got the Knicks game that just wrapped up. Tough loss for them. We got the Rangers who are leading going into the third period right now. A lot to cover, but what I do want to start with, I like to give our Sports Talk 1240 social medias a plug right here, as you can like us on Facebook on Sports Talk 1240. You can check us out on Twitter at Sports Talk 1240. And check us out at sportstalk1240.com. You can check me out on Twitter at Cramer New York. That's my last name, Cramerny. And if you want, later on I'll be taking calls. You can call us at 1-516-623-1240. And thanks again for tuning in tonight. I really appreciate it. But I'd like to start off with the Jets. Just an excruciating loss if you're a Jet fan tonight. Earlier today, it was one of those games where it looked like they might have enough to hang in. But when it all came down to it, 13-6 loss to the Dolphins. That's the last thing you want. You're swept by the Dolphins. You lose this game at home. Sam Darnold throws 4 interceptions. Terrible. You fall to 3-6. More terrible penalties just all over the place today. At 4-5, you could try to convince yourself that you're still in a playoff race, that a wild card is within your grasp. But, obviously now you're 3-6. The division with the Patriots in the division, there's no chance. Wild card hopes very dim. You're going to have to put together a 4 or 5 game winning streak to have realistic playoff hopes at this point. 3-6. But you know what? If you're a Jet fan, it's not the worst thing in the world. Everybody knew that this season was just all about getting Darnold better. And after a game today, you probably don't feel like he's getting that much better. But the fact is that he is. It's a maturing process. He's got very, very few tools around him. Aside from the defense, there was no standouts today. Actually, I take that back. Quincy Enunwa had a few really, really good plays on the offensive side of the ball. When the ball was in his hands, it was pretty exciting. But for the most part, he wasn't involved. Robbie Anderson, only had a few targets throughout the day. The real standouts were on the defensive side. When you have 4 interceptions and you only give up 13 points, you could tell that your defense was doing a real good job of holding this team down. And a couple of standouts, Avery Williamson. This guy looks like a better and better signing every week. Money well spent, unlike Trumaine Johnson, who missed another game today and said a couple weeks back that he feels no rush to get back in the lineup and live up to that big contract that he signed in the offseason. I don't like hearing that. I want to hear a guy that wants to bust his butt and get back on the field. But, if he's not healthy enough to be on the field yet, what are you going to do? There's not much you can. As, a couple other guys, or Jamal Adams, I really enjoyed watching this guy play. He's turning into one of the best safeties in the league. Everybody knew it. The back-to-back years of picking Leonard Williams and Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams looks really good. Leonard Williams looks like a good player, but not as good as they played him up to be. But I do like Leonard Williams. A couple other standouts today. Jordan Jenkins, really loved what I saw to him. Buster Screen had some pep in his step today. So really, really like seeing the defense like that. A guy who disappointed me today, Jermaine Kearse. He's a guy that whenever people have taken swipes at him since he's been here, I always stood up for this guy. I always, tried to, this guy's got the Super Bowl background. He had a lot of success, early on in his career with the Seahawks and under Pete Carroll and everything. He came here last year and he was just a vet going out of his way to get big things done. But he had a bad game today, and he's had a couple of bad games this year, as he came out and had a drop pass that really hurt them. He did a terrible job when he caught that pass, and he went out of bounds. There was nobody near him. I don't know how he ended up out of bounds. Very disappointing. Very disappointed in him. The running game looked lost today. Rarely were they consistent at all, and the offensive line was bad too. If that's another sign that you want to go to. Spencer Long. The one thing that you really have to understand from, is, if you're a coach, from a coaching perspective, Todd Bowles, the player's always going to tell you that they want to stay in, but was Spencer Long really the Jets' best option late in that game? Every play was seeming like it was a bad snap. Sam Darnold was under fire. The ball's a foot over his head. It's very disappointing. And, you had the backup center sitting on the guy started the last two games, I believe. I don't understand why he didn't come in at some point. It was, very disappointing. I do respect Spencer Long for being out there. The guy has a dislocated finger. I believe it's his dislocated middle finger. But if you can't get the job done, you shouldn't be out there, and that's the bottom line. And that big hole in the middle of the offensive line there really, really hurt the running game, I believe. It was just a detriment all day. The penalties hurt them. But what today showed most of all than anything is that Sam Darnold really needs pieces around him. He really needs some tools. And luckily for him and the Jets, you're more than halfway through the season now. You've got another week to go to the bye. This is all a learning experience. If you want, go to YouTube and Google the Growing Pains theme song, because that's what you're going to see for the next few weeks. Just like, Nets fans, Knicks fans, a lot of teams in New York are going to be feeling that Growing Pains theme song for a little while. And the Jets, you just gotta stick it out, and then in the off season, Mike McCagan or whoever, it'll probably be McCagan. It probably won't be Bowles coaching the team next year, but it'll probably be McCagan making the choices and buying the groceries, as Bill Parcells would say, and it's gonna be him going out there and getting the best players available. Might not be Le'Veon Bell. After what you've seen this year, you might not want Le'Veon Bell, anyway. But there's going to be a lot of big talent out there. The Jets are most likely going to have a high draft pick again. It might not be a top 3 pick again. It might be, at least it's going to be top 10. I'm pretty confident in that. I don't really see the Jets being much better than a 5-11 or 6-10 team at this point. And it's a game that you're really going to have to, for Jet fans starting next week now with the Bills, you're going to have to just look for the things, the Jets are probably going to win next week, right? I could definitely see it. It'll keep a little bit of that hope alive for Jet fans. Maybe that streak that we're waiting for, that 5-game winning streak, you remember they had in Todd Bowles' first year, maybe that is right around the corner. They're going to, get everybody excited with that. You're going to have a bye week to really sit on that win and enjoy it. You're facing a Bills team that lost 41-9 today to the Chicago Bears. That Chicago Bears looks like a very good team. Shout out to my boys out in Chicago, too, Lobo Sound. You can check them out on Twitter, at Lobo_sound. Check them out because, they're Chicago fans. And even though they beat us a couple of years ago, a couple weeks ago, actually, they beat the Jets 24-10. I'm rooting for the Bears with Khalil Mack and everything. It'll be nice to see that. But, they had a very good performance today against that Buffalo Bills team. And, now they're going to be facing the Jets next week, the Bills, that is. And it's, when you see how poorly the Bills have performed this year from an offensive perspective, the Jets should have no problem walking down the field. When you face top defenses like the Jets have over the last few weeks, I know the Dolphins aren't that great, but the Dolphins are motivated when they play against the Jets. The Dolphins have won 5 of the last 6 games against the Jets, as a matter of fact, and they get up for it. And that's a decent defense. You've got some good pieces on there. You've got a Pro Bowl in that secondary. You've got a couple of young kids with a lot of talent, a lot of upside. And I know it hurts to lose to a guy like Brock Osweiler today, but it wasn't the defense that coughed the game up. The offense and Sam Darnold being still a raw talent and not having much around him to complement him really sunk the Jets. And other than that, there's really nothing else to say except about today, but just to look forward. You have to look forward to get the Bills next week, like I said. It's the first game of the season they've played, believe it or not. They played the Bills in Buffalo, Week 14, December 9th. And the Jets' schedule isn't getting any easier, so if you're expecting that big run to come, I mean, as soon as you get out of the bye, you get the Patriots right there, so that's a punch to the mouth. And then the last 3 weeks of the year, if you're a Jet fan, you probably know this already, but the last 3 weeks of the year are Houston, Green Bay, and then at New England. Are they going to win any of those games? I mean, I'm happy. I'm glad because it's like throwing Sam Darnold right in the fire. Get his feet wet. Make sure that this kid is game tested for next year. And I think the biggest question of the offseason, aside from how you're going to spend that $100 million that Mike McCagan and the Johnson family have to spend, the big question is, who are you going to have to coach it? I know you just gave a 2-year extension to Todd Bowles, but I think everybody's pretty much come to the conclusion now that Todd Bowles is not the guy to lead this team into the future. I mean, the Jets are not devoid of talent. This team has been in a lot of games, lost a lot of games in a lot of ugly ways, including today. And I like Todd. I think he's a nice guy. I had a lot of faith in him early on in his Jets tenure, but when the losses are coming at you, double the amount that you're getting wins, you kind of have to evaluate a guy by his win-loss record after a while, and I think we pretty much see it right there. And once you get past that feeling, that's the main thing. And then like I said earlier too, the Giants are on a bye week this week, so if you're a Giant fan, you can really rest easy for this week. You don't have to be bothered by your football team. I'm kind of looking forward to my bye week in 2 weeks with the Jets because you just get annoyed with all the losses after a little while. And in New York, we haven't had a good football year, in a long time. The Giants of McAdoo's first year were the last New York team to make the playoffs, and that success faded quickly. Before that, the Giants hadn't made the playoffs in Coughlin's last few years there, to 2011 being the last time before that when they won the Super Bowl. The Jets hadn't made the playoffs since 2010, so it's been and especially after this year, it's going to be over 8 years of no playoff football. So New York, we're a little starved for it. We get spoiled at times. In the 2000s, the early 2000s, we had the Jets and the Giants pretty much in the playoffs every year. If the Jets weren't in, the Giants weren't in, and vice versa. It was pretty good, but it's been a lot of barren land from a football winning perspective. For New York and Buffalo, I guess if you want to consider them New York, they made the playoffs last year, but they're not doing too good this year, as all that hope and promise of all the draft picks they were stockpiling and the positivity that team and that city was feeling coming off their first playoff berth since 1999. Well, that's all gone. We're gonna really see where their head is at next year, and that's gonna be or next week. I'm sorry, at MetLife Stadium, Jets Bills, and that's gonna be what we're really looking forward to. And with no football, real quick, I do want to transition. There's another team in New York uh, that rhymes with the Jets. It's the Mets. They're they just named their new head. They were talking about how he was going to be the head of baseball operations and things along that lines, but I think he's just going to take the general manager title. Brody Van Wagenen, the former agent who's now turned to the front office, and he's a very interesting case. I give the Mets credit. I give the Mets a lot of credit. I'm a Mets fan. I can be very critical of this team at times, but I do give them credit for thinking outside the box, because I think a guy like Fred Wilpon was really thinking about just bringing in another scouting guy, an older guy like Gary LaRocque, who's a guy, he was the head of player development for the St. Louis Cardinals, former Mets front office guy, and he's got a long background, 65-year-old guy. He would have been a fine choice, to be honest. He wouldn't have wowed people, but he would have been something that you really couldn't have argued with too much. There was another candidate, Hiram Bloom. I'm sorry, young guy, 35 years old. He's got 14 years in a major league front office for the Tampa Bay Rays. Pretty much that whole time there, that team's been a real contender with Joe Madden, and even post Joe Madden. A lot of people thought that after Joe Madden that team was going to go right down the drain, but they've actually remained pretty competitive, winning 90 games this season. Their ability to spot talent, at a minimal cost to them is really beyond the pale, and nobody in Major League Baseball really can match that at this point. But whether Bloom has a lot to do with that or not is a different story. But so now we turn to the guy who got the gig, Brody Van Wagenen. This is a guy who is Jacob deGrom's agent, Noah Syndergaard's agent. I believe he's Ryan Zimmerman of the Nationals' agent. He's Cespedes. He's got a lot of these big contracts that the Mets have gotten done over the last few years have been clients of Brody Van Wagenen, and the Mets have a lot of background with him. So he must have sold them a bale of a bag of goods that they really liked, and it makes me happy that they're thinking outside the box. It makes me happy that they went to the guy. They took the road less traveled. They the only other examples that you really have of an agent turned front office in all of sports is the Warriors general manager, and if the Mets turn out anything like the Golden State Warriors, I don't think anybody will be complaining. But the other guy is over in Los Angeles. Their GM, the Lakers GM, is also an agent turned, general manager, front office guy. So it's going to be a very interesting thing for Met fans. Brody Van Wagenen. It's already eyebrow raising too, because the guy's first public appearance, the day he got his job, was an interview with Mike Francesa on WFAN New York, and this guy had a very contentious interview with Mike, and it really just makes you think that is he ready for the criticism and the pressure that comes with the spot of being a top guy in an organization in New York. And I like Brody, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but that's something that you really have to understand. This guy is going to press you hard. Everybody in New York, you're not going to, if he goes out and constructs a team next season that loses 95 games, he's not going to have fans coming up and patting him on the back saying, "Hey, Brody, I really like the direction of the team that you got us going in." There's not going to be one fan. You're going to have a bunch of rabid animals, including myself, screaming and yelling about this guy and wondering, what direction this team's going in. And, I want to give Brody the benefit of the doubt, like I said. For the most part, I do give him the benefit of the doubt, but it's also something that the Mets really have to keep in mind. This guy doesn't have the front office background. He hasn't built a relationship as a trade partner or anything along those lines with these front office from opposing teams or with other agents. It's usually very contentious when it comes to other agents. I know Scott Boras was making it quite obvious that he was not too thrilled with the idea of an agent turning, and you hear all these things about conflicts of interest, and he's going to have to recuse himself from certain contracts with guys that he's dealt with in the past. So it's just typical Mets that it's going to be a real convoluted thing over here. But if it works out in the end and they win, no one's going to care. He made a point to say the Mets are a win-now team. They're not in a rebuild mode. He said they want to keep their best talent in reference to DeGrom when people asked him, when the media proposed that question. But the bottom line is that that's all going to be considered fluff and meaningless until the Mets reach into their pocket and spend some money. Because you're going to have to back up your words with actions. Because at this point, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. Everybody wants to talk about how the guys, last season really didn't pan out. Well, that's because you went into the bargain basement, and I think a guy like Todd Frazier is a good player, but he's not certainly the top of the line guy you could have got. Mets could have gone out and signed Moustakas. And where was Mike Moustakas? No matter what you want to say about him, Mike Moustakas was playing in the NLCS at the end of the year. He was playing for a lot longer than the Mets played this year. So, you can, I like Todd Frazier a lot, but you got to go out there and you got to get winning players. And, one guy who I'd consider to be a winning player is Manny Machado. Go out and get Manny Machado. Go out and get, a lot of guys wouldn't want Bryce Harper. I'll take Bryce Harper on my seat in a second. I'll take him in a second on my team. And, I'm not a big fan of him and his antics, but when you have a pitching staff like the Mets, you have to put an offense in front of them that can help them get wins. A guy like Jacob deGrom only got 10 wins last year because of a horribly, horribly inept offense. And that's the facts. That's what it comes down to. Now this week is going to be a big week for the Mets. From what I hear, reports are Anthony DiComo, the Mets beat writer on MLB.com, said earlier today that the Mets execs John Rico and J.P. Ricciardi and Omar Minaya are all in the general manager meetings in California with Brodie Van Wagenen this week. So it's very interesting that the Mets are sending that quartet of front office guys out there. Normally you only send a general manager and a couple of his aides. Well, I guess that is the case. But one thing though that before we get out of here, we're going to take a quick break. But before I take the break though, too, we talk about the Mets. Go look at this guy, Peter Alonso. I know the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows about him now. He's one of the Mets' top guys. Look at his Arizona Fall League numbers if you're a Met fan and you're a geek about that kind of stuff like I am. Because he killed it. He was in the Fall Stars game as well and hit just a mammoth home run, 115 miles an hour exit velocity. This guy hit a bomb off a 104 mile an hour fastball from this kid from the St. Louis Cardinals. So it's just really a blast seeing this guy come around. It looks like Peter Alonso is going to be here. I would say there's a very good chance he's their starting first baseman next year if they're committed to winning. That's what we're going to see, no doubt about it. Who knows? Maybe that makes Dom Smith available. Maybe it doesn't. We'll figure that out. But, all right, we're going to take our first break of the day, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we'll be doing This Day in Sports History. We'll talk about the little Knicks, little Rangers, and we'll see you on the flip side. Thanks for joining me.
You are listening to SportsTalk 1240 on Long Island's AM 1240. WGBB.
Country Foot Care, official podiatrists of the New York Lizards, have been delivering state-of-the-art foot care with good old-fashioned caring to Long Island residents for over 30 years. Specialists in sports medicine and foot injuries, Country Foot Care can be reached at 516-741-FEED or online at countryfootcare.com.
Want to advertise your business on SportsTalk 1240? Place an ad on SportsTalk1240.com and run a radio commercial during the show every Sunday night here on AM 1240 WGBB. Our rates are very affordable. We'll even produce the radio commercial for you. Just head over to SportsTalk1240.com and fill out the Contact Us form and let us start promoting your business today. Unflippable, unflappable, unleakable. The Gusbuster is the only umbrella that won't flip inside out, rip, tear, or leak. Capable of withstanding winds over 55 miles per hour. All of our umbrellas are constructed of the finest quality materials and backed by a limited lifetime guarantee. What are you waiting for? Visit Gusbuster.com and get your Gusbuster today. Stay connected to Sports Talk 1240 by following us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Sports Talk 1240.
You're listening to Sports Talk 1240, broadcasting every Sunday night beginning at 8 p.m. right here on Long Island's AM 1240 WGBB, the station that serves your community. And now, back to the show.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer. Thank you for sticking around and joining us here on this beautiful Sunday night, November 4th. And November 4th, let's do this day in sports history. All right, this day in sports history, November 4th, 1976, the first mass market free agent draft took place in New York. This system would only last until 1981, but in this first attempt, many big names such as Reggie Jackson, Joe Rudy, Gene Tennis, Raleigh Fingers, Don Baylor, and the late Willie McCovey were all available. November 4th, 1978, the Islanders defeat the Capitals 4-1 at the Nassau Coliseum, beginning a 15-game unbeaten streak where they'd go 12-0-3 en route to one of their best seasons preceding their 4 straight cups. November 4th, 1987, NBA Commissioner David Stern announces there will be 4 new franchises added to the league, Charlotte and Miami, slated to begin in 1988, and Minneapolis and Orlando, who would begin in 1989. On this date, November 4th, 2001, a walk-off single by Luis Gonzalez ends Game 7 of the 2001 World Series, one of the most exciting series ever, as Mariano Rivera uncharacteristically blows it in the 9th, ending the Yankees' quest for his 4th straight title. And finally, November 4th, 2009, the Yankees defeat the Phillies 7-3, avenging that loss in 2001, they're winning Game 6 of the series behind Andy Pettitte. That was the Yankees' last championships to date. And that's this day in sports history. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is that great time of year again where the football season is upon us. It is week 9 in the NFL, and have you won big yet? I have, because I go to BetDSI.com. BetDSI is an A-plus rated sportsbook and has been around since 1998. In the last 20 years, they've built an impeccable reputation for great service and fast payment, combined with an excellent mobile interface so you can play, win, and get paid anywhere, anytime. And if you sign up for a new account and use my promo code, COFFEE100, that's COFFEE 100, BetDSI will double your money up to a $500 deposit. If you put in $500, bam, you've got $1,000 right there. My Monday night locks so far this season are 4-1. I missed a couple of weeks because I was sick, but I'm kicking butt right now on this, and you should get in on it too. This week, BetDSI has the Cowboys favored by 4.5 over the Titans in Dallas, and I'm taking the Cowboys and running with it. I think the Cowboys are going to cover this one Both teams are 3-4. They have not been consistent, but I expect the Cowboys to come out motivated and defend their home field in prime time. Don't forget that BetDSI doesn't only offer the best NFL odds, but NCAA, MLB, NBA, NHL, boxing, UFC, and more. Don't stand on the sidelines. Check them out at betdsi.com. That's BETDSI.com, and use my promo code COFFEE100 to double your bankroll today. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for sticking around with us here on Sports Talk 1240. I am your host, Rob Cramer, and we still got a little bit to get to here as we want to talk about the New York Knicks right now, and they had a tough game today. They were coming off a big road win for them, a 118-106 win in Dallas, where Tim Hardaway Jr. had a great game. So many of these guys on this team, like Damian Dotson and Neil Aquina, and Alonzo Trier. A lot of these guys have showed a lot of promise. Mitchell Robinson has been taking minutes away from Cantor. He's been getting the starts. Noah Vonleh, former first rounder who showed a lot of promise. Mario Hezonja. I really like what I'm seeing out of a lot of these guys. It just hasn't come together yet, and it's kind of mind-boggling at times when you really think about it. But they still come down. They're still in every game. We still haven't seen Courtney Lee yet. Who knows what's going to happen with him? He could very easily be traded at any point. But Fizz is the type of guy that you really want to lean on. He knows the guys that he wants to bring along. He knows, one of the guys who I really didn't see coming from is this guy Damian Dotson. I thought he was a nice guy. He was a former second-round pick. He's a guy that I thought he could be a role player. Maybe I thought he could. I thought he could do a lot of things, but not necessarily contribute the way he has now. And he's averaging, a couple of threes a game now. He's putting, every time we turn around, he's in double digits. He's got multiple rebounds. That's the type of thing you want to see from a guy coming off the bench. And he plays good defense. Alonzo Trier plays good defense too. And Neil Aquina, I really like his defense as well. That's something you haven't been able to say about a lot of Knicks teams over the last few years. Their defense has been atrocious. That's one of the reasons why I do like Cantor. I'm a big fan of Cantor. He had 18 and 12 tonight. And, under the right circumstances, I would love to have Cantor come back next year. But the more you see him on defense, the more you see that he's untrustworthy on a good team in a big spot. When you need him to get back on D and make the play, I don't know if I trust Cantor. And if you're going to be paying him $18 to $20 million a year, you're going to have to depend on him getting back on defense. And I just don't know if Cantor is the type of player to be that. And, that kind of stinks. And when you look at the Knicks today, too, they lost 108-95 to Washington. They fall to 3-7. They trailed big early, but they cut the lead late. They tied it. Couldn't finish it off, though. A common theme this season, I know. Trey Burke, 13 points. Dotson, 11 and 6. So there's a lot of guys individually who contributed. It was good. It looked like Hardaway went down hard at one point, but he was able to really stick it out and to get the job done. But unfortunately, the Fizz and the Knicks dropped to 3-7, and now they come back home tomorrow. They're playing the Bulls. It looks like they might get, Kevin Knox back tomorrow. Kevin Knox sprained his ankle a couple weeks ago. He's missed the last 7 or 8 games. He's only played in 3 games this season, but he pronounced that he was a game time decision for tomorrow, which was kind of funny because before the game, Fizz even laughed about it and said, "Well, he's in no position to declare himself a game time decision." But so they kind of pumped the brakes on that a little bit. You never know. Maybe they'll hold him back, till the next game, because he was supposedly supposed to have a 5-on-5 practice on Saturday, but instead they bumped that down to a 3-on-3. They weren't sure if he was ready, and if there's questions, that severe, maybe they'll hold him out tomorrow too. Although it would be nice to see him get back quickly. Listen, folks, I know that it was disappointing to see him go down. You just had these bad feelings about your early draft pick getting hurt. Kind of like Fultz last year with the Sixers. He got hurt, and then he never really got back on the court. And there's a lot of early first-round busts in the NBA, so you can think the worst when something like that happens. But I do think we got lucky. Knox even said he appreciated seeing the game from a different perspective and letting it slow down a little bit. Sit on the defense, see what the veterans are doing, see the game from a different view. And I do think that's going to be very beneficial for this young man, really. And I think he's going to do a lot with it. Kevin Knox, he's got a lot of talent, and I wouldn't rush him back. In February, when he's been back for a few months now, and we see a lot more of him, there's not going to be someone saying, "Oh man, I can't believe he missed 10 games at the end of October and the beginning of November." So, don't rush him back. Take your time. We're not going to be seeing Porzingis for a long time. There have been rumors of Christmas, but I think that might just be to not kill the rating on that completely, because frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see him this year at all. Although that would be concerning, because you do want to see him get a little bit in to shake the rust off. But, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. You never know what is going on with the guy coming off an injury as severe as what Porzingis suffered last season. So he's the same way. He's a drawing card for free agents. A lot of these young pieces the Knicks have probably will be. I see, guys like Berman and Isola writing articles dreaming about free agents next year, although, Isola's a little more cautious about the guys that he thinks the Knicks can go after. Berman, is pretty much full steam ahead. Durant and all these guys, still holding out hope that LeBron's going to come here one year. I'll give you an update. He's not going to. He looks like he's sticking in L.A., and even if he goes somewhere else after L.A., I highly doubt that it'll be the Knicks. We've only been waiting for 10 years for this. But, who knows? Maybe the Knicks will get Durant. Maybe the Knicks will get Kyrie. Maybe they'll get a guy like Kawhi Leonard. But you can't hold out hope for that. You can't build your team that way. The Knicks are going to be in the lottery next year. They're going to have a lot of young pieces to come. And whether they add something big via free agency, that would be amazing. If they don't, there's nothing that bad about that either, because they got a lot to build on. And having KP back next year, it just makes me think too, when you see how close they are in so many of these games, and how if there's something they could get just to pull the trigger and just bring it all together. And that one thing I keep thinking could be Kristaps Porzingis. When you look at some of the stats, the Knicks are among the lowest. I think I saw the number. They're 29th in blocked shots this year. 29th. That's terrible. And when you get a guy like Porzingis in there who's going to average 2 to 3 block shots a game, if not more, that's a big uptick in disrupting another team's offense against you. And adding Porzingis is going to only help. Getting Knox back and teaching him how to play defense at the NBA level, which looks like Neil Aquino already has down pat. Alonzo Trier, he's turning into a two-way player. listening to listening to Clyde Frazier talk glowingly about Trier tonight, or Trier. I'm sorry, I keep saying Trier. I believe it's pronounced Alonzo Trier. He Clyde had nothing but good things to say about him tonight, and frankly, I agree. He's a great kid, great talent, and it's really terrific to see, no doubt about it. And real quick too, the Knicks, they play the Bulls tomorrow, and we'll turn the page on the Knicks real quick here, as I'd like to talk about their MSG mates right there. They're the other team that plays there, the New York Rangers. The Rangers are in a very same position as the Knicks, very similar, where every win that you get is good. You pat yourself in the back for a win, but also you kind of think to yourself, well, yeah, I'm kind of hurting my shots for, a big pick, a very high pick next season. Although the thing about the NHL draft is that when you get guys like that, unless you're drafting in the top 3, you're really not going to get an impact guy for that season. With the NBA, a top 10 pick is going to be an impact player for your roster that year. Not so much with the NHL, as the New York Rangers have found out. Elias Anderson has had trouble sticking at the NHL level. Philip Heedle's been here a little bit, and he was even the 21st pick. But the number 7 overall pick hasn't stuck, and they drafted Krosdav this year, and he's not even in North America. He's still over in Russia. So the Rangers are going to see too. They're going to stick this year again. They'll probably be, most likely in the draft lottery as well. But they're coming off a very good road trip where a lot of good things happen. They dropped the first 2, 4-1 in Chicago. They dropped 4-3. What's it called? A last second loss in Los Angeles too. It was terrible. You felt really bad for Lundqvist. That's something that have really been biting the Rangers lately, these last-second goals. They won the last 2 in California, giving up last-second goals in both of them as well. San Jose, they won 4-3 in a shootout. Anaheim, they won 3-2 in a shootout. Shattenkirk getting the winner in San Jose. Zibanejad getting the winner in Anaheim. Zuccarello was looking good, too, in all those. And, this kid, Brett Howden, man, every time I see him, he looks like a better and better NHL player, no doubt about it. It's very interesting to see him turn into a great player. And I was even saying to friends this week that when you really think about it down the road, that trade for Ryan McDonough, which was supposedly built around Libor Hajek, I really think we're going to be saying Brett Howden, the Brett Howden trade, a little bit down the road, no doubt about it. I think that's a slam dunk. And I even have in my notes, actually, it's funny that it'd be nice for the Rangers to get a win for David Quinn in regulation tonight, and that's just what they did. They went out and beat a good Sabres team who've been on a good roll lately. They went out and beat them 3-1. A couple of early goals from Pionk and Vesey, Mestikov, Zibanejad, Howden, Fast all had assists. Everybody looked good. Henrik Lundqvist, it's just good to get this guy kind of a stress-free win. I know they didn't score the third goal until under 3 minutes left in the third period, so he was still sweating it out for most of it. But at least that final minute, even if he did allow a goal, it wouldn't hurt that bad. Although I know the perfectionist that Henrik is, he would not be happy about that at all. A couple of things that I noticed. I've seen flashes from Anthony DeAngelo. Really nice to see this kid, one of the pieces they got back in the Derek Stepan trade a year or 2 ago. So it's nice to see this young kid from New Jersey really showing potential. Another thing too, Pavel Buchnevich. I didn't see much out of him tonight, although I didn't watch much of the third period as I was on the air here. But Pavel, he was benched the last 2 games before tonight, and the thing I like about David Quinn is that he's got a little grit to him. He's got a little, sense of humor, and he even said, "I hope." When asked how they think that Pavel Buchnevich is going to take being scratched the last 2 nights, a healthy scratch, his response was, "I hope he's pissed. Now go do something about it." I love that. That's the type of guy that you want That's the type of guy you think that's going to motivate your team. And that's exactly what I want to hear. And I hope that Buchnevich was pissed. You should be pissed. He's one of the top guys. This is a guy who Ranger fans have claimed since day one that Alain Vigneault handled this guy wrong. And to a certain extent, I 100% agree with that. I did not think that Alain Vigneault treated Buchnevich right, and or not necessarily treated him wrong, but I don't think that he did what's best for the kid's skills. Now, on the other hand, I think that that David Quinn's going about this right. Make this kid prove his spot. Make this kid earn his spot, and make him angry about it. Make him show that you made a mistake. So I think this is going to be the make or break point for Buchnevich, and I like him a lot. He's a good kid, and it'll be nice to see what happens here. They got that win tonight at Buffalo. It was or at the Garden against Buffalo. And Brett Howden, it was good to hear him say before the game that it's good to be home. They wait until Tuesday now to play Montreal, and then they hit the road again next weekend. But the Rangers have a lot on their plate now. They're we're fully into this season where we saw there's gonna be a lot of growing pains this year. I mentioned the Growing Pains theme song. Google it if you don't know it. Because that's something that, for a lot of these teams, we got a lot of young guys, and you can throw the Mets in that category too. The Rangers are just one of these teams where they're one of the youngest teams in the league. Sure, I know you've got a 38-year-old goaltender back there who's going to the Hall of Fame on skates, and he's one of the best of all time, especially without having won a cup. But he's the rest of the team in front of him is a bunch of young kids, one of the youngest in the NHL. It's just like the Knicks on the other side, The New York Knicks are the youngest basketball team in the NBA. There's a lot of youth, and the enthusiasm is really good at times where you see, like Fizz said earlier this year, just to skip over the Knicks for a second, just to show, because it's all the same thing, really. Fizz said, this team is just dumb enough that they think they can beat the Warriors when they played the Warriors. And look at that. For 3.5 quarters, the Knicks hung right there with the Warriors. The championship team and that they are, and the talent took over late in the game. And I think that is something, too, where the Warriors do lack a certain amount of motivation until they're pushed back against the wall. Although you wouldn't have noticed that in the finals last year when they swept the Cavs right out. But, I do think that especially in the regular season, that the Warriors tend to play down to their competition a little bit sometimes. And while that may have been the case against the Knicks, it was good to see. It was good to see, and Fizz called it right. They're dumb enough to think they got a shot. And you can say that for a lot of the teams, especially. You could say it with the Rangers, you could say that with the Jets, and you could say that with the Nets, you could say that with a lot of these teams. And, there's a lot of good things. One team that's playing really well and isn't getting a lot of, back page or a lot of the New York media attention is the New York Islanders. The New York Islanders are 8-4 under Barry Trotz. This team... they've got a lot of stars on there, and you've got Barzal, you've got a good core over there, and a lot of people thought they were going to take a step back without Tavares this year, but I really see a motivated team in that Islanders team, and I'm going to make a prediction. I definitely see the Islanders in the playoffs this year, and you'd think that, it kind of reminds me almost, maybe it could be like addition by subtraction, and that sounds kind of crazy, but it almost reminds me of that the Mariners, when they took A-Rod off that team, about 20 years ago, and then the next year they made the playoffs, and the year after that they had one of the best years ever. So, it might not be to that extent, but I do kind of see like maybe getting that cloud of what we're gonna do with Tavares. Oh, we're gonna keep this guy. As great as he was, maybe it did kind of hang over the heads of everybody there, and maybe it would be good just to, either get him locked up, which didn't happen, or just let him go and just move on and put Barzal as the star that you build your team around. And it's the Islanders are heading in the right direction. This guy Barry Trotz knows how to pull the strings, and if these new owners that the Islanders have are willing to spend and willing to do what it takes to have a competitive team, that they're going to be a good team for a little while. They got a lot of young talent, and I think the main thing for them is just finding that goalie to bring it all together, and that's going to be the main thing. And whether they have to look outside the organization for that goalie, which they probably do, and trade for him, or scout and draft or find that goalie internally, that'll be the other thing. But that's the big question surrounding the New York Islanders there, and they're another team that they're not as young as and inexperienced as a lot of the teams I said, but they do have a couple of youthful veterans there that really take that team, and a lot of teams they know what they're looking at, they know what they're up against, and right now the Islanders are sitting in first place, and they've got 2 wins in the last week against the Penguins, so that's got to feel pretty good, as the Penguins have been one of the most successful teams over the last couple of years. But so okay, let's the other thing that I do want to wrap the show up with, as we're coming down the stretch here, ladies and gentlemen, and thanks for sticking around with me here on Sports Talk 1240. But the last thing I would like to close with is the a little bit of baseball here, as the New York Yankees. We talked the Mets earlier, and obviously the Mets and the Yankees are in such different spots when it comes to where they are, what they need to land. I hear a lot of people talking, oh, the Yankees should get Machado. The Yankees should get Harper. The Yankees should get Machado and Harper. I don't think the Yankees want to bring guys like that in right now. I know the Red Sox won the World Series. I know the Yankees want to respond. And I know it hurts because the Sox rubbed it in the Yankees' face. I know, even though a lot of people, if you saw last week during the Red Sox celebration and their championship parade and everything along those lines, Alex Cora was in front of a crowd in Boston and started talking about how, oh man, when the Red Sox lost Game 2 of the LDS, a lot of people started getting, weary and started getting nervous and started doubting the Red Sox, and then they came out and scored 16 runs in Game 3 at Yankee Stadium. And then he told everybody to suck on it and held up the trophy. So that, I understand a lot of people being annoyed by that, but to be honest, I don't think he was even talking about New York. It sounded to me like he was talking more to the media types, especially in Boston, who were down on the team and really didn't think they were going to do it, and maybe even some self-doubting Red Sox fans. But, I understand taking it personally if you're a Yankee fan. And you should. The Yankees are the ones that are associated in the name brand when it comes to winning championships, and the Red Sox have kind of stolen that moniker over the last 15 years. And to be honest, Harper and Machado or any big bat isn't the answer for me. It's starting pitching. I know that sounds crazy, but really when you think about it, starting pitching is what you need to win. And, one guy that I pushed for over the summer was Snell from Tampa Bay. And I know that was, crazy, but the Yankees had the prospects to actually get it done. But, obviously that's tough. He's still under contract and everything. But now, over the last 24 hours or so, there have been reports out of Cleveland that the Indians will be listening on a lot of their veterans, specifically their starting pitchers they're talking about. And one of the guys that really has intrigued me, or actually a couple of the guys that's really intrigued me, are guys like Corey Kluber, Mike Clevenger, and Trevor Bauer. If I was the Yankees, I would be in on that in a second. Those are the type of guys. They're playoff tested. If you stuck an offense like the Yankees behind these guys, man, and added them to that Yankee rotation where you got Severino and Tanaka, and possibly Sabathia still, although the Yankees would rather, as much as you'd love having a guy like CeCe around, you'd rather not rely on him in the postseason. As we saw, he got smacked around a little bit, but I would still bring him back, however. But you got to be in on these guys: Corey Kluber, Mike Clevenger, and Trevor Bauer. And I think that the Yankees should be looking at guys, like Murphy and Michael Brantley, who are not strikeout guys, because you need to put the ball in play. And you're not going to have Didi, so the Yankees got to make a move. Well, we know that, and that's the fun of the offseason. We got the GM meetings coming up, and the Yankees got plenty of time, but plenty of time is something that I don't have right now, as I'm running out of time here on Sports Talk 1240. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me here for the final hour of Sports Talk 1240. I want to thank my engineer Brian behind the glass. Great as always. My lead-in. You can't ask for a better guy than Bill Donahue to lead in. You can't ask for anything better than that. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everybody for listening, and have a great night. I'll catch you next time.
The views expressed in the previous program did not necessarily represent those of the staff, management, or owners of WGBB.
This is WGBB AM 1240 and W240 GFFM 95.9 Freeport, New York.